Hi, I'm Rick Rheins, the Senior Rabbi at Temple Sinai in Denver. This week's Torah portion is Naso, and we're going to focus on the 6th chapter, in which there's a pretty famous passage. It's called the Birkat Kohanim, the threefold benediction from the Torah. And we recite these blessings, literally the priestly blessings, for some very special occasions. And we'll talk about that in about a second. The words are quite famous. Yivarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha, Ya'er Adonai panav alecha v'choneka, Yisa Adonai panav alecha v'yasem lecha shalom. Translation, may God bless and protect you. May Adonai shine the light of his countenance upon you so that you feel God's grace. And may God grant you the blessing of shalom. Shalom meaning, of course, peace, but also of wholeness, of connectedness, of contentedness. Now, that threefold benediction, the priestly blessing, was traditionally given by those who were Kohanim, those who come from the priestly families. And they would come up on the bima in a practice called the duchenin, and they would cover their faces, their heads with their talitot, and they would outstretch their arms and share these blessings for the people. Interestingly, you would always have either the cantor or a gabbai or a rabbi who would prompt word by word those who were kohanim to recite these words. So it was not as if that person who was the kohen would be the one who shares the actual blessing. That's number one. Number two, many of the Kohanim, even though they come from a priestly family, again, the temple was destroyed almost 2,000 years ago. That doesn't necessarily mean that everyone who's a Kohen has all of the Hebrew literacy and expertise in order to recite that blessing. So the gabbai or the cantor or the rabbi would share word by word so that person would then recite these words. But what is it actually to say that I am blessing you, that I'm outstretching my arms and reciting these ancient words, by the way, which have meant so much to our people in various times of trouble and of celebration. In trouble, when we're looking for that inspiration to help lift us up out of a difficult time, in those times of celebration, at a baby naming, at a wedding, at a bar, bat mitzvah, to raise your hands and recite these words means that you're elevating the situation, elevating the experience to that which is hopefully sacred. But does a human being, whether they're the Kohen from a priestly family or HaKohen, the HaKohen Hagadol, the great high priest, even back in the temple days, did that person have the power to bless another person? No. Actually, in that same chapter, the same 6th chapter of the book of Numbers, it says God gives these instructions, of course, to Moses and Aaron, and then concludes after the blessing by saying, "V'samur et shami al bnei Yisrael v'ani avarchem." Say these words, place literally my name upon the children of Israel, v'ani avarchem, and I will bless them. Meaning that each person out there has God's blessings from the moment of our birth, the moment of our being. So what's the role then of the Kohen? What's the role of the rabbi, the cantor, the parent in blessing their children, blessing their congregation, blessing those who are looking for a heightened sense of the sacred? Our role is simply to remind the people that we're with that they already are blessed. People need encouragement to say, I am worth it. I have purpose. I have meaning. And yes, there are people and sometimes events that conspire to beat us down, to cause us to doubt and to consider that maybe we're not worthy. By reciting these words, we're saying, I don't have the power to bless you because you are already blessed. I do have the power to remind you that you're a blessing. In this world right now that we have, in which there are so many difficult situations that we're facing, so many things that are bringing us down, let us remind each person that we're with that they can be a blessing. Now, I mentioned that there's a difference of tradition as to how often this prayer is recited. In the Ashkenazic tradition from central to Eastern Europe, the tradition is to recite it at the Yontov, at a festival service, or at a high holiday, or some sacred event. In the Sephardic tradition, those from Spain, Portugal, Northern Africa, and the Middle East, those Jewish traditions have the recitation of the Birkat Kohanim, this priestly blessing, at every service. At every service, they recite the blessing. So the question is a little bit of style. I mean, is a blessing that you recite all the time somehow diminished because you say it all the time? Or is it actually becoming much more sincere, much more a part of our world? I'll give you just one analogy, and that is when you say, I love you, right? You can be stingy with saying, I love you, and say, I love you only once in a while. To say, well, if I say it all the time, it diminishes its power. Perhaps. But there's a certain power to saying, I love you all the time, to reinforcing to the people that you're with, to your family, to the people who are dear to you, that you care so deeply about them. And not to have them guess, not to have them go very long without hearing those words. So whether you have the strategy of reciting those words of blessing or of the expression of love on just the highest of occasions or on a regular routine, find what works for you. But most importantly, look at the people that you're with and tell them that you feel and see and recognize and acknowledge and celebrate that they are blessings. Shabbat Shalom.